Hello class, today we're going to continue our study with functions and lines. So let's review how to isolate variables, okay? So we're going to say that we have to isolate y. So I'm going to put down a function and we want to get y by itself. Well, recall if you want to get a letter by itself, you only want that letter on its side and everything else on the other side. So the first thing you have to get rid of is you have to get rid of anything here that's being attached to that letter by addition or subtraction. So I'm going to add the 2x to the other side. We would have 3y equals 2x plus 9. Divide by 3. Y would equal 2/3 x plus 3. Now, if you recall, that y means the same thing as f of x or g of x. So sometimes you will see it written f of x equals 2/3 x plus 3. And that means the same thing as y. So now we have that isolated. So what we're going to look at now is a few ways to graph. Okay. So second, we're going to graph the function. So a few ways that we have learned to graph a function. One way is to make a table. Okay. So I'm going to review that way with you. And so with our x's, we're going to pick some inputs. So remember, your x is your input, your y is what you get out. So I'm going to pick the number on the bottom, the negative of that number. I'm going to pick 0 and the positive of that number. Now you have to get your y by itself where you can type it into the calculator, and that way you can access your table. So the function was 2/3 x plus 3. So to get to the table, we're going to hit second table, and -3 gives us 1, 0 gives us 3, and 3 will give us 5. So we'll take that and plot those points on the coordinate plane. So we would go to the left 3 and up 1, up to the number 3 on the y-axis, right 3, up 5. And make sure to put arrows on the line. Now that's how to graph with an XY table. The second way you can graph is called slope and y-intercept. So if you graph with slope and y-intercept, you have to know the definition, which is called slope-intercept form. The M stands for the slope. The slope tells you how to count. The B stands for the y-intercept. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take that function and I'm going to identify the slope and the y-intercept. So the slope would be 2/3. The y-intercept, which is b, is going to be 3. Now that is where it touches the y-axis. So that 3 is going to be in y spot because that is your y-intercept. That would be your y point. Now, if the slope is positive, that tells you that your line is increasing, which means it is going up, okay? So to count for your slope, because you're going to count, if the slope is positive, you're going to count up and right. So I'm going to draw my coordinate plane, and I'm going to start. This is where you start. You start with your point, okay? So you're going to start with the y-intercept, which is this point right here. So we're going to start at the point 3. The slope being positive tells me that I'm going to go up 2. So I'm going to go up 2 and right 3. So I'm going to go up 2 and right 3. Now, the opposite of up would be down. So if I go down, that is a negative move. I would have to go left, which is a negative move, because a negative divided by a negative would be a positive. So I'm going to go down 2 and left 3. Notice that I get the same line. This point is 0, 3. This point would be negative 3, 1. And the last point there would be 3, 5. So we get the same line. So you could graph that with a table or slope and y-intercept. When you mash graph in your calculator, your line should look similar to the one given. You can always check your points by going to second table if you get confused with counting with your slope. So let's talk about what slope means. So there are 4 types of slope. You have lines that go up. You have lines that go down. You have lines that are horizontal. And then you have a special case and the line would be vertical. Okay, so with our 4 types of slope, if a line goes up, you read this from left to right, so it is increasing. So you notice right here from left to right, I'm going up. From left to right, this line would be going down. So this one would be decrease. This one right here would just be flat. And this one right here in your special case is going to be vertical. And this flat line would be called horizontal. So when you look at these 4 types of slope, okay, so slope is the steepness of a line. And in math, slope is written using the word m, and it's rise over run. The reason I put the y there is because it's the change in y's over the change in x's. Y's come first. There's a formula, y2 minus y1 tells you how much the y's change by subtracting, and x2 minus x1. Okay, so if I look at this one right here, and I have solved for y, when I solve for y, the slope is going to be positive. That tells me that I'm going to count up and right. The opposite of that would be down and left. Make sure your line is increasing. For this one, when you isolate y, the slope is going to be negative. So here you would count down and right, or you could count up and left. Make sure that is decreasing. If the line is horizontal, you're going to have y equals c, which means y equals some constant number. You will only have a y. You do not have a y and an x. You only have one letter here. Okay? For the special case, this is going to be x equals a constant. So x is going to equal some constant number. You will not have a y in that case. So when you think of slope, this would be going up a hill, positive. This would be going down a hill, negative. This would be zero fun, 0. And then this would be falling off the cliff, which is undefined, undefined. So with the slope for this one, the slope here is undefined. Okay, the slope for this one is going to be 0. So your slope is 0. Here, your slope is undefined. So when you look at solving with the formula, okay, when you solve with the slope formula, when you get m equals, you know that it is a horizontal line if you get 0 for the slope. To get 0 for the slope, you're going to have 0 on top and some number on bottom. That's going to reduce to 0. For this one, you will get the number on top and 0 on bottom. Division by 0 is not possible. So therefore, it would be undefined. You cannot divide by 0. So let's try a problem or two in this last example of looking at getting the slope from 2 points. Okay, so let's say that we have 2 ordered pairs. Let's say we have 0, 2, and we'll say we have 3, 4. So let's go ahead and plot this to see what it looks like. Now I'm going to go ahead and draw that line. So I know looking at that line, my slope is going to need to be positive because this line is going upward from left to right. So it is increasing. So let's use the formula. You always do the y's first, and then you do the x's. So y2 is 4 minus y1 is 2. Then we have 3 minus 0. 4 minus 2 is 2. 3 minus 0 is 3. So this tells me my slope is 2/3. So let's see if I rise and I run, if that's what it would be. So I'm going to go up from that point, 2. I'm going to go over 1, 2, 3. So I rise 2 and I run over 3. Okay. Now let's think about putting the equation for this line. Remember, the equation is y equals mx plus b to get this line. So if you notice, the y-intercept is your b. This point right here, 0, 2, where it crosses the x-axis, is your y-intercept. So the y-intercept right here is going to be the number 2. We're always going to have the x right beside the slope. The slope would be 2/3. So your equation would be y equals 2/3 x plus 2. So if I put that into the calculator, and I graph it, I would go to my table and I would see the point 0, 2, and I would also see the point 3, 4. Okay, so this would be a function because it does pass the vertical line test, and it is linear because it graphs a straight line. So this is what's called a linear function. Now make sure you upload your notes or bring those to class tomorrow and complete your assignments. I hope you have a great day.